All right, so get ready because we're going to do a deep dive into atomic habits today.
Cool.
We are starting with the intro, and I'll tell you what, this is where it all starts.
It really is.
We're going to be diving into each chapter in detail later on.
Yeah.
But the intro kind of sets the stage.
It does, and I think what's so cool is how James Clear, the author, actually uses his own story
Yeah.
to show the power of atomic habits. He doesn't just preach about the theory. He actually shows how these principles played out in his own life.
Right.
And it's pretty incredible.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So he starts off with this crazy story about a baseball bat accident he had in high school.
Yeah, a total freak accident.
A freak accident that left him with some pretty serious injuries.
Yeah, a real turning point in his life. He
Yeah.
talks about the impact of the bat, the helicopter ride to the hospital,
Oh, why?
the broken bones, the coma.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a really vivid emotional account
Yeah.
of a very traumatic experience.
You could almost feel the weight of that experience.
You really can.
And what's interesting is how he doesn't dwell on the negative at all.
Yeah.
He kind of uses this event as a springboard to explore how, even in the most challenging situations, you can still find growth.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is how he connects this experience to the core idea of atomic habits.
Okay.
He realized that just small injuries can accumulate over time and lead to significant damage, so too can small positive changes accumulate and lead to remarkable improvement.
So it's almost like he's saying if you break down a mountain into tiny steps, you can eventually reach the summit.
Exactly. And that's where the power of consistency comes in. He talks about how after the accident, his recovery was super slow and it was frustrating.
I bet.
He had to relearn basic skills and his dreams of playing professional baseball were completely shattered.
Wow, so what a blow. How did he get back on track? Did he just suddenly have this, burst of motivation?
Yeah. Not really, no. He talks about facing setbacks, he even got cut from the varsity baseball team in college.
No.
But instead of giving up, you know what he did? He started focusing on small, achievable wins.
Oh.
He began implementing tiny changes to his daily routine. Things like, making his bed, studying consistently, and incorporating regular exercise.
Wait, so making your bed is a key to success?
Well, it's not just about the bed making itself.
Okay.
It's about the principle behind it. James talks about how these small actions, these tiny wins, help build a sense of self-discipline.
Yeah.
And then they create momentum for bigger changes.
So I can see that. It's almost like you're building a foundation, brick by brick.
Yeah.
Each small action kind of contributes to the overall structure.
Exactly. And as he continued building these positive habits, his life started to transform.
Wow.
I mean, he went from being a struggling student to being the captain of the baseball team,
Really?
graduating with honors, and eventually becoming a successful entrepreneur and author.
So he didn't just bounce back from the injury. He completely, exceeded any expectations he might have had before.
He really did.
It's almost like the accident became a catalyst for something even greater.
But that's a great way to put it. And that's what makes his story so inspiring, right? It shows that even when we're facing adversity, we still have the power to shape our own destiny,
Yeah.
just through the consistent practice of small positive habits.
So how did he go from changing his own life to writing a book that's helped millions of others? Was it just another one of these small steps?
Absolutely. He started by sharing his insights on a blog, and he was writing consistently, day after day.
Wow.
And over time, that small habit of writing led to building this massive audience.
Really?
He landed a book deal and ultimately created Atomic Habits, which is a global phenomenon.
It's crazy. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The idea that something as simple as writing a blog post every day could lead to such a huge impact.
It is.
But I guess that's kind of the whole point of Atomic Habits, right?
Right.
Tiny changes applied consistently can lead to extraordinary results.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is that he doesn't just rely on his own story either.
Okay.
Throughout the book, he weaves in research from all these different fields like psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics.
Oh.
And he breaks down all these complex scientific concepts into simple, actionable strategies that anyone can implement.
So it's not just motivational fluff. It's backed by real science.
Exactly. And he even builds upon existing models of habit formation.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the cue routine reward loop?
Yeah, I think I have. It's basically the idea that a habit is triggered by a cue, followed by a routine, and then reinforced by a reward.
That's the gist of it, but James adds another layer.
Okay.
He talks about the importance of cravings.
Okay.
He argues that it's not just about the external cue or reward, it's also the internal desire that drives our behavior.
So if you want to build a habit, you need to make it something you crave,
Yeah.
not just something you force yourself to do.
Exactly. And that's just one example of how he delves deeper into the psychology of habit formation.
Oh.
He introduces his four-step model of habits, cue, craving, response, and reward, which we'll be exploring more as we dive into each chapter.
So this is where it gets really interesting, right? We're not just skimming the surface. We're going to really unpack the science behind habits
Yeah.
and figure out how to make them work for us.
Exactly. And he goes on to explain his 4 laws of behavior change,
Okay.
which are actually derived from that four-step model.
Okay.
They offer a practical framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones.
All right. I'm hooked. I can't wait to dive into these laws and see how they apply to pretty much everything.
You and me both. And what I appreciate about James's approach is that he doesn't just focus on achieving specific outcomes.
Yeah.
He talks about the importance of building an identity based on the habits you want to cultivate.
Okay, so that's a really powerful concept.
Yeah.
So it's like saying, don't just try to lose weight, become a healthy person.
Exactly. It's about shifting your mindset. Yeah.
From what do I want to achieve
Right.
to who do I want to become,
Okay.
and then aligning your habits with that identity.
So, okay, let's recap for a sec. We've got the accident, the recovery, the small wins, the blog, the book deal, the science, the four-step model, the 4 laws, and the identity shift.
Yeah.
All in this introduction. It sounds like we're just barely scratching the surface.
We really are, but that's what makes this introduction so powerful.
Okay.
It lays the foundation for everything that's to come in the book.
Okay.
It gives us a glimpse into the transformative potential of atomic habits.
Right.
And sets the stage for our own journey of self-improvement.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired already. I'm starting to see my to-do list in a whole new light now.
And that's the beauty of it, right?
Right.
These principles can literally be applied to any area of life, whether you're looking to improve your health, your finances, your relationships, your career.
Yeah. The foundation's the same. Small changes, consistently applied, lead to remarkable results.
Yeah, it's amazing how even seemingly insignificant actions,
Right.
if you do them over and over,
Right.
can create a ripple effect that shapes not just our daily lives,
Yeah.
but also our long-term outcomes.
It's like that saying, what you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while.
Exactly.
And James really drives that point home with his own story. He didn't just achieve all this success overnight.
Right.
It was a very gradual process.
Yes.
Built on small, intentional actions.
And that's what we're going to be exploring in detail as we dive into each chapter of Atomic Habits.
Right.
But for now, it's important to understand that this isn't just a self-help book filled with, motivational stories.
Right.
It's grounded in real scientific principles.
So it's like a blend of inspiration and practical advice.
Yeah.
Almost like a roadmap for actually implementing these changes, not just dreaming about them. Exactly. He doesn't just tell you what to do. He explains the why behind it.
Okay.
He dives into the science of habit formation.
Okay.
Drawing from research in fields like psychology, neuroscience, behavioral economics.
Okay, so let's talk about that science. So he mentions these 4 laws of behavior change.
Yes.
Can you give us a little sneak peek into what those are all about?
Of course. These laws are essentially a framework for making good habits easier to adopt and bad habits harder to maintain.
Okay.
And they're based on his 4-step model of habits: cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay, so remind me again, what's the cue about?
So the cue is the trigger that initiates the habit.
Okay.
It's a signal to your brain that it's time to perform a particular action.
Okay.
So it could be a specific time of day, a location, a particular emotion, or even just the presence of certain people.
So if I wanted to create a habit of meditating every morning,
Yeah.
my cue could be setting my alarm for a specific time and placing my meditation cushion in a peaceful corner of my room.
Exactly. By making the cue obvious and consistent, you're essentially setting yourself up for success.
Got it. Okay. So what's next? The craving. Right.
Yes. The craving is the motivational force behind the habit. It's the desire you feel that drives you to perform the action.
So in the meditation example, it's not enough to just set the alarm and have the cushion ready.
Right.
I need to actually want to meditate.
Exactly. You need to find a way to make the habit appealing.
Yeah.
Maybe you focus on the feeling of calm and clarity you experience after meditating, or perhaps you create a playlist of like soothing music that you associate with your practice.
Okay, so make it attractive, make it something I look forward to.
Right.
What's the next step?
The response.
Right. The response is the actual habit itself, the action you take. And it's important to make this step easy and achievable, especially when you're first establishing a habit.
So instead of trying to meditate for an hour right off the bat, maybe I start with 5 minutes and gradually increase the duration as I get more comfortable. Exactly. It's about reducing the friction, making it as effortless as possible to perform the desired action.
Okay, so we've got the cue, the craving, and the response. What's the final piece of the puzzle?
The reward. This is the positive reinforcement that strengthens the habit loop.
Okay.
It's the feeling of satisfaction or pleasure or accomplishment that you experience after completing the action.
So in the case of meditation, the reward might be like the feeling of reduced stress or improved focus that I experience afterward.
Exactly. And by associating the habit with a positive reward, you're more likely to repeat it in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm starting to see how all these 4 steps work together
Yeah,
to create this powerful cycle.
right.
But how do these 4 laws of behavior change tie into all this?
So each law corresponds to one of the steps in the habit loop.
Yep.
The first law, make it obvious, focuses on the cue.
Okay.
It's about making the trigger for your habit clear and visible.
So like putting my running shoes by the door if I want to start running more regularly?
Exactly. The second law, make it attractive, focuses on the craving.
Yeah.
It's about making the habit appealing and something you actually want to do.
Right.
The third law, make it easy, focuses on the response.
Okay.
It's about reducing friction and making the action as effortless as possible.
Right.
And then finally, the fourth law, make it satisfying, focuses on the reward.
Okay.
It's about making sure the habit provides you with a sense of accomplishment or pleasure.
Okay, so I think I'm getting the hang of this. So these 4 laws are essentially like a set of guidelines for optimizing each step of the habit loop.
Exactly. And by applying these laws, you can increase your chances of successfully building good habits and breaking bad ones.
This is starting to feel less like magic and more like a science experiment. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually taking control of my habits instead of letting them control me.
That's exactly the point. And what's exciting is that we'll be diving deeper into each of these laws and exploring specific strategies for implementing them in our daily lives
Sure.
as we go through each chapter.
Awesome. I'm already taking notes.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I kind of want to circle back to the intro for a moment.
Sure.
You know, we've talked a lot about the practical side of atomic habits,
Yeah.
but there's also this really powerful message about identity that I found really resonated with me.
Yes, absolutely. He talks about how our habits shape our identity.
Right.
And in turn, our identity influences our habits.
Yeah.
It's a reciprocal relationship.
So it's not just about, building good habits.
Right.
It's about making sure those habits are aligned with the person you want to become.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, who do I want to be?
Right.
And then using your habits as the building blocks to create that identity.
So like if I want to be a writer, it's not enough to just like dream about it.
Right.
I need to actually cultivate the habits of a writer,
Yes.
like writing consistently, reading widely, seeking feedback.
That's a great example. And, as you embody those habits, you reinforce that identity, which makes it more likely that you'll stick with the behaviors that support your vision of yourself.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you act like the person you want to be, and eventually you become that person.
Exactly. It's a very powerful concept.
Yeah.
And it really highlights the transformative potential of habits. We often think of habits as these like small, mundane actions,
Right.
but they're really the foundation of who we are and what we're capable of achieving.
And that's what makes this introduction so impactful.
Yeah.
It lays the groundwork for everything that's to come in Atomic Habits. It's an invitation to not just read the book,
Right.
but to really embody its principles and use them to shape our lives.
And what I find really inspiring is how James Clear emphasizes that this isn't about being perfect.
Right.
It's about making small, consistent improvements over time.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the process and trusting that, even tiny steps can lead to significant progress.
I think that's such an important point, especially in a world that often glorifies like overnight success.
Right.
He's reminding us that real lasting change takes time and effort. It's about showing up every day and doing the work, even when it feels small or insignificant.
Exactly. And that's where the power of those atomic habits comes in. They're the building blocks of those larger transformations. It's like building a muscle, you know?
Yeah,
You don't get ripped overnight.
right.
It takes consistent training, pushing yourself a little bit further each time.
And that's what we're going to be exploring in much more depth as we continue our deep dive into atomic habits. We'll be unpacking each chapter, breaking down those 4 laws of behavior change, and looking at some practical strategies for building those good habits and breaking those bad ones.
I'm excited to see how you apply these principles to your own life. It's a journey of self-discovery,
Yeah.
and the beauty is that you're in control. You have the power to choose the habits that will shape your future.
I'm definitely feeling empowered to make those choices, and I can't wait to share this journey with our listeners.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into the introduction of atomic habits, I want to leave you with this thought. What's one small habit you could change today that might have a big impact on your future? It could be something as simple as drinking more water, going for a walk each day, or spending 5 minutes practicing gratitude. It might seem insignificant now, but remember, even tiny changes, consistently applied, can lead to remarkable results.
That's the power of atomic habits. They're not about grand gestures or overnight transformations. They're about the small, consistent actions that, over time, compound into something truly extraordinary. So as you go about your day, think about that one small change you can make. And remember, even the smallest step in the right direction can lead you to where you want to be.